Gangsters in Cape Town have the mother city in their clutches and they are connected to major sectors. We take a look at this with the Daily Maverick's journalist, Caryn Dolley. She's the author of a piece called Clash of the Cartels, Unmasking the Global Drug Kingpins Stalking South Africa. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Perhaps let's start with an introduction for our viewers in terms of your article. It reads, Gangsters in Cape Town are running private security companies, violently muscling in on construction sites and extorting business people. They are connected to entertainment venues and collude with an array of individuals in government and the private sector. These accusations are very real situations and they are throttling the city. Piecing together various gang-related problems, which are usually focused in isolation, allows for an ominous picture to emerge. Let's paint this ominous picture, if you will. Let's start with what you take, I beg your pardon, everybody. Let's start with this. Iron-fisted extortionists. Talk to our viewers about that.
Look, this is a tongue twister of something to unravel, so
it blows the mind as well.
Thank you. As well. But, yeah, so what we're seeing in Cape Town at the moment, or what you see if you piece various aspects of gangsterism together, is extortion from townships to killings in upmarket suburbs, and all this extends right into historic gang hotspots and Cape Town city centre. So we're seeing lots of different types of gangsterism, and if we look at it together, it's sort of this tightly spun web around Cape Town.
You argue that this is particularly distressing because the Western Cape is South Africa's gangsterism capital, and more so, children are being recruited and targeted, at times with the knowledge of police.
So what we do know is that in gang shootings, children are caught up in crossfire. That is fact. This has happened in the Western Cape and further afield, but several times. In the Western Cape specifically, this is a problem because there is a court matter or a civil court matter that could develop further, and this hinges on a police investigation stemming from 2013 already, in which police officers were accused of smuggling firearms meant to be kept safe with the cops to gangsters in Cape Town. And there were allegations that those firearms, those police smuggled firearms, were used by gangsters and other criminals, and among those wounded and murdered were several children, I think 166 to be precise.
What do we know about extortion gangs, the Guptas and Boko Haram?
So those are extortion gangs that, according to a court judgment from last month, November 2023, they focus on townships particularly, and they have been known to target Somali business people before. These gangs are also responsible for mass shootings, so we're talking about shootings in which there are several victims, and they're also responsible for intimidation. In the Western Cape and Cape Town particularly, we've seen, in the 1990s already, we've seen extortion focused on nightclubs. This resurfaced/resurged again in 2017. We saw individuals claiming to be involved in security companies, and the state says, actually, no, they are sheer criminals. I would say enforcing, in a sense, their security on certain establishments. So what we're seeing really is a continuation of old crimes, but perhaps in new forms.
It's getting more sophisticated. You also write about cop collusion, where the Independent Police Investigative Directorate actually undertook an investigation, but that is yet to be made public.
So in October last year, Western Cape High Court Judge Daniel Filare, he handed up a judgment in terms of a gang case. And in it, he said there was extreme evidence to suggest that the 28th gang, members of that gang, had infiltrated the province's police. And he gave quite a detailed judgment, and it also said that those gangsters may have had access to the police's crime-fighting plans. And it's been more than a year since then, and the public has not been privy to what investigations from the Independent Police Investigative Directorate as well as the South African Police Service has found. It's important to note that in that case that the judgment is hinged on, one of the accused is a police officer, which implies that there is collusion, or the state believes there is collusion between police officers and gangsters.
What of the construction cartels? What have you uncovered?
So it's very similar. It's almost an extension from what we've seen that's been happening at nightclubs in Cape Town in the past, where services are enforced on certain places. With regards to construction, we've seen at a very ground level, we've heard stories of gangsters basically telling contractors to get off construction sites. They're taking it over. On a more official office kind of level, white collar, if you wish, level, we've heard suspicions and allegations that gangsters have been awarded tenders, or gang suspects have been awarded construction tenders. Of course, if you overlay that on Cape Town, geographically, we're looking at gang hotspots. So when you've got an alleged gangster providing whatever service in a gang hotspot, that inevitably will stir up tensions which could produce violence. And in Cape Town, we have seen how a housing official in the past murdered in February this year.
You also note that gangsterism suspicions trail from private and government offices to construction sites and railways. How should we understand the alleged involvement of those sectors specifically?
So in the city of Cape Town in March this year, a former city official with the Human Settlements Division, his office was raided, and that was an investigation into fraud and corruption, and it looked into whether he had possibly accepted cash or money from underworld figures or alleged gangsters in exchange for information about housing contracts / tenders. So there is that is playing out at the moment. It must be stated that the former official has not been criminally charged, but there are suspicions of gangsters having muscled their way in. And it's also important to remember, and I make reference to this in the Daily Maverick 168 article, is that gangsters and criminal accused can make use of people without criminal records to sort of run front companies for them, and they can get contracts without being detected. So I do believe that this is happening on a grander scale in Cape Town and probably elsewhere in South Africa.
You no doubt spoke to the government of the Western Cape. What is it that they have told you?
So in terms of that, they have acknowledged that they have previously done business with the company. The director of this company is now facing criminal charges, and her husband is an alleged gang boss. The Western Cape government has confirmed that they are aware of police investigations, and those investigations are ongoing, and we could see arrests, we may not see arrests. The investigation could prove that actually didn't happen.
You've also spoken in your article about security for gun licenses, where the gangsters allegedly go as far as the private security industry. What is the threat there?
So in terms of private security companies, I wrote a book called The Enforcers Inside Cape Town's Deadly Nightclub Battles. That was around 2018, 2019. And what we've seen is, and police have made these allegations in court, it's not just coming from me, is that we've got crime suspects who use other people to start security companies. They then apply to police to get firearm licenses, and they get the firearm licenses, they get hold of the firearms, but then they do not use those guns for security purposes. They use them to commit crimes. And that is a concern in the Western Cape, and we should be hearing more about allegations in that realm early next year when Nafiz Modak, an organized crime accused, goes on trial, or is set to go on trial.
Is there a sense that the government of the Western Cape is as committed to, I don't even know what the word is, sorting it out or getting to know it more intricately, more so when there's allegations of some officials being involved? I ask when you only need to think of in recent memory how the government of the Western Cape reacted to the taxi industry in a show of force. And so you can tell that there is will there to do something in the name of keeping the Western Cape or some streets and towns in the Western Cape safe, or the commuters safe. But is there a sense that there is something that is being done concertedly about this, at least?
So it's not just the Western Cape. I would also go national. there is work being done to try and turn the situation around. There are good police officers. There are good officials. What we are seeing, though, is arrests being carried out, which is excellent, but underpinning and underlying all these arrests are the constant suspicions of government gangster collusion. So, there is cause to be hopeful. People are doing their jobs. Arrests are being made. There are court cases that are starting up and further developing. The underlying issue is what is the nauseating problem, the collusion, because that could sink all the work that is being done.
In recent history, I think it was October, there was a gentleman where we saw pictures, I think News 24 did a really good job on this as well, of a certain Nasir Shafiq, I do beg your pardon, I think you would know the character better than we do, where he was gunned down in broad daylight, and there's been instances like that in a city that looks very calm on the surface, but has a rather interesting underbelly. And so what do we know about that gentleman? Has there since been information and investigation as to what happened?
So I haven't checked with the police as of this week or last week, but I would hope that if there is an arrest in that case, it is announced publicly. I believe you're referring to Shafiq Nasser. He was originally from Israel, and he was murdered while driving in a Cape Town suburb during the day. It looks like, or we know that individuals on a motorbike approached and shot him while he was in his vehicle. It's not the first time individuals on motorbikes or assassins on motorbikes have operated in Cape Town. There have been other incidents, for example, Cyril Beaker, which was quite a few years ago. He was an alleged underworld kingpin, also some would say a state operative or a rogue state operative. He was also assassinated in a vehicle with men or individuals on a motorbike. So yeah, these are what we would kind of classify as organized crime hits. These have happened before, as I've said, and in most of the cases, Cyril Beaker's case included, arrests have not been made.
Caryn, I'm curious, in a country where you could look the other way and you could work anywhere else in the world, why take a look and investigate the underworld, something that from the outside looking in is quite dangerous?
Well, I said in a previous interview, a contact of mine once said there is no underworld. It's just a word used by the media to sort of contain a group of information. And I think that's true. We think of it as something separate to us, but this affects every single one of us. And I think that's one of the points I try and make in that Daily Maverick 168 DM 168 article, is that this is something that actually affects every single one of us. And I can't turn away because it would do me a disservice as an individual and as a journalist. If I know something wrong is happening, I should expose that, which is hopefully what I'm doing. And hopefully, in doing so, people can extract information and make good or better choices.
Thank you for sharing your calling with us. Caryn Dolley, author of Clash of the Cartels, Unmasking the Global Drug Kingpins, Stalking South Africa. There we go. And that you can find on the Daily Maverick's website.